Hey everyone, I'm Yash and this is Think and Drink Podcast, Episode 7. Today we're talking about relationships, the great ships, small ships, the best ships, all sorts of ships. It's not a sailing podcast, but it could be if you wanted to. Throw a comment down in the YouTube video if you want it to be about boats. And I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Cadby.
Yes, sir. It could be about boats. I don't know about many boats, but we can do research.
Do
The internet
research. What do you
provides.
know? So we're not talking about boat ships. We're talking about relationships. What do you know about relationships?
Um, in my 26 years of life, I've learned a lot about relationships. One thing I learned recently about myself is that I value friendships pretty highly. And this came to me after talking with a buddy of mine. He's like, because we were traveling for a little while. I'd moved to Denver right after college and lived there for, the first 3 years after college, and him and I would catch up every now and then. And he's like, yeah, dude, every time we chatted, he's like, you'd always say, you miss your friends. He's like, that's always been really high in your list of priorities. So I gotta do better in honoring that in myself. I think I'd be maybe a little happier, but it's too much to explore. Too much to explore, dude.
So
But
you're
other
saying
than that,
your friends weigh you down, is what I'm hearing.
whoa. They're yeah, the baggage you don't want, but the baggage you need there.
Oh, there you go. Um, I I would agree. I think for me personally, I agree like that. I would say my friendships are like up there in on the priority of ships. It's definitely a higher one. Like that brings most joy, I guess, excitement, and like when I think back, like my best memories, it's usually with like my friends are side by side. How do you how do you approach? I guess we could just jump into this. I'm thinking about this. Like, so you moved. You mentioned you moved to Colorado, right? Right out of college, and you're talking to your friend that you miss your friends. What was your method, if you had a method or approach to finding new friends in Colorado? Or even, they don't have to be friends, I guess meeting new people in Colorado when you moved and you literally knew no one, if I remember, right?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know anyone here. I guess I knew, so my dad has a friend that lives here. Um, so I had like a distant family friend that I knew, but no one else really. And yeah, I just kind of threw everything at the wall and see what would stick. So um, I think I went to a lot of meetups. I don't know if you've been on meetup.com.
I I only went because you told me that's how you you went to a bunch of them. So
Yeah, dude, and it was terrible. It sucked.
so what is meetups.com? Explain it.
It's yeah, so it's I'm trying to think, I don't know the best way to explain it. It's like a website, it's like a community driven website. So there are these different groups on meetup.com, and a group is it's like a sponsor, like endorsed by someone who wants to start this group. They pay, I don't know what it's like, $15 a month, super cheap, to like start a group on there. And then this platform allows people to see your group, join it, and then you can have when I started, it was a lot of in person. That was like before COVID. So it was like, we're gonna do like a happy hour at this place, and it was like web developers happy hour or something. I went to one of those. It was like people in the industry happy hour. Sometimes they'd like partner with a brewery or something, and you'd get like whatever, like 20% off a drink, or they just have the space reserved. So it's like a Facebook group, or like I don't know. It's but basically it's centered around this idea that you can have like meet people that are like minded. I think that's like the end goal. But yeah, you get all walks of life. There's no accreditation. There's no like test to get into one of these groups. Not that you need accreditation, but like there's no like standard for who's going to show up. So
Mm,
it's just kind of you just really have to get your reps in, I think, if you want to get something out of it. Which
okay.
one? Which one
So,
did you go to?
I'll touch on. I have a couple different stories with the same type of topics, but so what's so you did meetups.com. Did you do anything else? Like, did you find that you were like super outgoing at the grocery store or something, like in the hopes that you would meet other people? Like, is there anything like that, or were you strictly like using these like communities and these platforms to find like other like-minded individuals or people in the same situation?
Yeah, it was yeah, it was a lot of meetup.com, and then I reached out to a couple people at my gym I'd seen pretty frequently, but there wasn't really anyone my age going before work. That's usually like your, I don't know, I feel like early 30s was probably the average age in there, or just geriatric, just super old. Just like nothing else. They just want to go when it isn't crowded, and they wake up at 4 a.m. anyways. So um and then I'm trying to think what else. It wasn't I'm not your type, like type A outgoing chat someone up at a grocery store. So yeah, I think those are my two main avenues. And then my boss at work, when I moved here, I went and like went to happy hour with his friends or whatever, but that I didn't gel with any of them, so that didn't pan out.
So, do you like the outcome of all of this, all your reps that you put in? Do you did you have any friends that you could say that you look back, you have friends that you still talk to them from that like initial period of moving out there?
If so, a bunch of friends from school ended up moving here. So I was only here like truly alone for like 6 months. And I did meet, he's actually, I met someone at a meetup. His name was Michael. He was an old friend from high school. Um, and like we went back and forth a couple times. We like went on a hike. I think him and I would have become closer friends if like not like if a group of like 10 didn't move here from Arizona to Denver, then yeah, I probably would have seen him more. Um, but no one else from that period. Maybe, yeah, there's maybe a couple other people that like I could reach out to and it wouldn't be weird. Um, and I found a mentor during that period. So that was
Mm.
pretty cool. Yeah.
And is that
But
mentor someone you actively seek through the same platforms, or is that more happenstance?
it was a friend of my old landlord when I moved here.
Mm. Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how you categorize that
I
encounter
don't know.
chance.
Yeah, chance. It's like
Yeah, but yeah, I think my situation was somewhat unique because I worked at a company of two where I was number two. So it wasn't like I had coworkers to lean on, or like it wasn't like, oh, coworkers bring their friends from around to a happy hour and you meet up with them, and like you have this trickle down effect that multiplies your potential like friend pool um pretty like pretty exponentially, right? So when you only have one coworker, there's a pretty limited path for that. But
yeah.
yeah, my situation was unique in that I think a lot of people would have more luck if you moved. Slack has a huge headquarters here. Like if you got a job at Slack in downtown Denver, like I think you'd be fine, you know. But dude, tell me about your meetup experience.
Okay. All right. So I'll qualify and say this that so in a similar experience to you, right? Out of college, moved to a new city where I did have some friends, but like didn't end up like meeting up with them. But so I've been in New York for 3 years, and 3 years as of a couple weeks ago. And every year that I've lived in New York, I have had the goal of making one net new friend. And when I say net new, that is a friend who I have no prior connection to them at all. That meaning it cannot be a coworker, it can't be a coworker's friend, and it can't be a person from college that I like knew. Like I knew that person, their friend is in New York, and they introduced me. Had to be 100% net new. So I'm 3 years ago and no new friends like that. It is,
What?
it's tough to make net new friends. Um, and and so when I moved to New York, I moved part of a university program to a big corporation, right? So I actually got hired into as part of a team of eight, so seven others that were all straight out of college, similar situation. They've all become my friends, and I hang out with them pretty frequently. They go into concerts and things like that, and so I've made friends like that. But I had this hard time kind of being able to differentiate like whether or not you can be like genuine friends with your coworkers. Because to me, it's like you go to work and like if you go have a great time on the weekends and you just have a little bit of too much fun, and then now you sing these same people in the office, right? And who knows, like, at the time I was like pretty, I guess, like scared about that. I was like, well, what do they think? Like, this is a professional environment, all of that. And over the years, I've realized it doesn't actually matter that much. But at the time, I was like super scared. So I still wanted to make this net new friend. So I went to one meetup from the meetups.com. And I kind of walked through the door to go look around, and I was like, yeah, this is not happening. I left. I immediately left. But
I've done
but
that.
what I did do was I go to Reddit, and there is a subreddit called New York City Meetups, and it's way like less like, yeah, I guess like business oriented, whatever. It's like, hey, thinking about getting like a group of people together to go and like to like this place, this beer garden, or like wherever it is. And like I was just like stalking it for a while, like, just like looking at all the posts, like, oh, this sounds like cool. There's a couple times where it's like, oh, we're doing a game night at like a bar that does like, the board games. And then I would just sit there and I'd overthink it. I'd be like, yeah, but then you're stuck playing a game. There's no like, I need a ripcord, right? Like I need to be able to leave in any moment. And if I sit down to play a board game and I want to leave, I can't just get up and leave. So I was like, I can't do those. I'm gonna go to just like a one that's like, super chill. And I end up going to this bar. I think it was like Memorial Day, maybe July 4th, I don't remember. And we show up, and just like what you're saying about the meetups, it's all walks of life. Like I think the oldest person there was maybe like 40, and the youngest person there was like 21. And I was like 22. And I did meet a lot of cool people. I never like stayed in contact with any of them. Like we just like hung out. I sat at the bar and we talked, and like it's like going to like freshman year of college, or like I don't know. You're just like person flirting, I guess. I was gonna say man flirting, but it's like person flirting where you're just like, oh hey, like what's up? My name's Yash, like blah blah blah. This is what I do, and you're just like you're going through this like introduction after like you're speed dating these people. And it was great. You meet some like cool people from like cool walks of life. But to me, it's still I just could never see a path forward of like how do you like authentically become someone's friend from that point. Like I would go to another meetup because it was interesting. You meet new people and that's a great experience. But I don't know. I think there has to be a more common like factor of like things you would want to do together, or something like that. Like you have to strike a commonality with these people, and I just found that really hard to do because the conversations were so surface level. And there's so many people. Every time a new person sits next to you or something, it's like you have to introduce them to the group. Otherwise, you're going to be that person who leaves the person out, and then they're just like sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and then it's like, hmm. So that was kind of my experience with these meetups.
Yeah, there's a lot of social gymnastics involved in like doing meetups well. I think. I think it's funny about the ripcord with the game, dude. I would go to events. Um, my boss, my first boss here in Denver, he had me host a meetup. So like I was the one that was supposed to coordinate like everything. I would like finding the venue and all that stuff is easy, but it's like you are the linchpin in this working. So like everyone that walks through the door, you greet them, you introduce them to the group, you like it's social gymnastics. So Yeah, and I saw that. I was like, I did not want to do that. I hated the idea. I was like, this is gonna suck. It's like I don't have a ripcord, but I learned a lot, and you learn to challenge yourself, and yeah, dude, I would maybe not now, I would maybe not anymore encourage you to do the board game, but in the moment, I would see it as a challenge. Like, okay, how much can I get out of this person that I find absolutely boring? Just just an absolute doorknob. So,
Uh, I yes, I agree. Like, there's a lot of times where I was like sitting there, I'm like, you just kind of have to not think, right? You just have to show up because you can. I guess like I've enough confidence in myself, enough like confidence in my like bare minimum social capabilities to like not to be able to say hello, how are you, and like speak to what I've done in the past and who I am, and then like just shut up and let someone talk, right? Like I can get to that, but the thoughts in the head leading to like just putting yourself there is like was the challenge, right? It was like, oh, do I need a record? What's my excuse? Like all of those things. And so I agree that there's an element of like you just kind of need to stop thinking and then try and spin it in a positive light and say like what can you gain from this? And I don't know. I also think it's the loneliness of moving somewhere new and having to go and find these friends. I think is a very human experience that everyone should try. I think everyone should just be try like even if it's like only 6 months in a new place where you just have to figure that out. Like I think it's a very fun looking. So I learned about this. This is kind of a tangent. There is two types of fun. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
no.
There is type one fun, which is fun in the moment. Think about like a roller coaster or like you're snowboarding, fun in the moment. And then there's type two fun, which is it's not fun at all in the experience, but when you look back, it's like, oh, that was really fun. That was really like exciting. I'm so happy I did that. And it's like I would say moving to a new city and like those new experiences is type two fun. In the moment, it's like this sucks, and I don't know
Yeah.
anyone. But then I look back at all those like times where I'm like, oh, I definitely had one meetup, had a little bit too much to drink, and was definitely saying things I should not be saying out loud to random strangers. But that's okay. I remember waking up the next day and feeling terrible. But like looking back, I'm like, that is so funny. That is so much fun. And so I highly recommend it for some type two fun in your life.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that, but it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I agree though. It is the getting there that's the hard part. Once you're at the meetup, it's like, all right, I'm in it now. Like I'm in the thick of it. I just got to make the most of it. But
Yeah.
the hardest part for me, I created this mental like block where I was like, and eventually I just stopped going because of this reason. And I was like, okay, so the people that I'm gonna want to call my friends, like these authentic friends that you're talking about, um, they're not gonna be at these meetups. I'd like convinced myself that that I'm never gonna meet like an authentic friend at these meetups. Not to say like the relationships you get out of those aren't meaningful, especially if it's like a networking meetup, like a lot of mine were. Um, yeah, there are definitely like potential business opportunities there, but um, yeah, I think sorry, I just got a Slack. I'm getting distracted. But yeah, it's
No,
getting there.
I
That's
do.
the hard part.
I do see your point though. Like, a lot of the times, the people I met at these meetups were serial meetuppers. They were consistently going to it. Like that was like part of like their activities that they would do. They thought they got a lot of enjoyment of meeting new people and like making that like surface level connection. And I do it again the next week. Like, but they weren't really looking to do anything beyond that. And so I could see like, and I don't know many of my friends today that would be like, that is like what they find exciting or fulfilling is like continually just like going to these meetups.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that expectation of getting something more than just like a surface level meeting out of a meetup is what makes it so intimidating. Like you said, those people who are doing the serial meetups, they're like that's the end of the road for them. That's like the goal. It's like, okay, go there, talk to people. That fills their cup. They're like, I'm good. But that I don't think is our goal or our goal for the meetups at least. Um, so maybe it's just like a change in expectations. But I don't know. I haven't been to one in so long. I think a lot of them are virtual now.
I could not do that.
Yeah, it'd be
No
so
shot.
weird.
I like last point on like some meetups is if you so like working in corporate jobs, something I wish I had done a little bit better, and I'm actively trying to do more of, is like um we have a fantasy league football that I'm in, and it's like across everyone who's in my office. It's like done by my company, so it's free and you win prizes. Like that's they just give you prizes. We have like a softball team, and I just found out about this. I think I probably could have done a little better figuring it out. But like I think joining those like teams and things like that is like also a good way of like making friends. Like I think in today's corporate world, especially like I work in tech, everyone is like pretty like I guess like social and like friendly, and there are people who consistently like go to happy hours and like I would consider them, they would consider each other friends even though like the main place they work every day see each other is work.
Yeah, yeah. I think bringing it back to like how close can you be with a coworker, or what kind of friendship does a coworker offer? Um, I think it depends on your ambition, right? Like if you want to have a coworker that you want to go get like sloppy drunk with and have like a wild night, um, I feel like you won't be seen as like as serious by that person in your office. So like that could potentially not damage your reputation. I think it would strengthen your friendship with them. Like I think you're faster to um like a more trusting friendship. Um but I think you're slower to see like any momentum in your workplace from that. So I think if you're like if you're a salesperson, you're like, oh yeah, like my job is to go out and like schmooze people and like, build that relationship quickly, then I think yeah, getting like pretty sloppy one night is gonna build that relationship pretty quickly. But that's kind of your job as a salesperson, right? It's like to build that trust as quickly as you can. Um, Whereas like if you're trying to move up internally, that might be a different conversation. But
Yeah, I think it's a really good point and like a great way of I think it's like verbalizing definitely what I was like it's like how are you coworkers viewing you, and are you viewing the only you will you get stuck with, especially starting in this new company like this, oh you're like a party person, right? And I think that's a really hard image to shake once you get there. uh and so like I was like very much like my body is a temple kind of co-worker, I was like I'm
yeah,
like
sure.
show up every day early, showed up early, got to my desk, sat there, and then people would be like, "Oh, like, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, just like like it was very like different." And I would say, just like trying to be like this, like come off like whatever you're perceived as at work, but then also trying to make these relationships because it was such an easy relationship to make. But at the same time, it's like totally taking into what you said, new account, because definitely don't want to be known as the person who goes to happy hour every day of the week. It's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the party label. That's such a good term for it because you definitely know those people
Yeah.
in the office. Yeah. No, I put on the same. I mean, I think everyone does it to an extent, right? They wear this. I don't want to call it a mask, but like you are a different person at work, right? So, and some people choose different masks than others, but yeah. No, I was the same way. I was like get there early, stay late. Um, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see
We had
any
a
other option starting out.
well, you didn't
You know?
really have you only had one other person to
Yeah,
really
that's
like
true.
impress, and they were your boss.
Yeah,
Uh, so a
yeah,
little different. We my group of kids, like our cohort of kids that were hired on, ours it became very quickly very competitive because there's 8 people, 8 kids. They all graduated from very prestigious schools, so they were all hardworking, and we are all learning the same things. And we would get like we'd go through our like training program, and essentially you could basically get a grade out of these like how well you did this job or project or whatever. So it instantly became like passive aggressive competition. Oh, like what are you doing on this? And then they'd be like, oh, it's nothing. Like I'm really working on it. And it's like, I know you're working on this. It's like, I know, like, what are you doing? They'd be like, oh, it's like, I don't really know what's going on. Like, this is maybe happening, or you
Oh
could
no.
totally see there's like secret like alliances being formed. We were so young, we were all like we're trying to work really hard. So we were just hyper competitive. Like, oh, this person's staying late, or this person's doing this. Like, you could tell there were whispers. It was like, for some reason, like, no one gets fired at my company. Like, you have to be so irresponsible, like, for many months to get fired. Like genuinely not doing work for many, many months to get fired. But for as a new kids out of college, we were all just sitting there like, oh, eight of us got hired. There's no shot that they keep all eight of us for a year. Like, the bottom two are definitely getting dropped. Like, we were survivor like mindset from the start. And so that competition was definitely breeding the entire time.
My gosh. I can't imagine that. That sounds intense, dude.
It was great. I loved it.
That's
Playing
hilarious.
games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I know. I wish that the biggest company I worked at was like 100 people, and I think there were only like 50 or 40 of those people in my office. So, yeah. And then my team was like five people. So that was, yeah.
We
The corporate
we
sounds fun though.
we hired 12,000 people in the last 2 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Dang.
so it's a big company.
And acquired, oh, I can't say, oh, I'm not
Don't
gonna,
say that.
I'm
Don't
not
say
gonna. Okay.
that.
All right, we'll save that for another time.
Another day. Another day.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So we kind of covered that. You move somewhere new. Meetups are I would say meetups. The way I would summarize it is meetups, like the meetups.com, Reddit meetups, is a great way to keep your like social like tools like refined. If you're like alone somewhere, like, I totally felt like when I went to these meetups, it was keeping me like in the realm of, oh, I know how to meet new people. I know how to interact with human beings, and I'm not just like alone in this city. And I think
Dude,
that's
and
a great way of doing.
it sounds crazy saying that too. Like if someone's hearing this for the first time, like what the heck is he talking about? Like he sounds like a crazy person. That's literally what it feels like after a while. If you're seriously alone somewhere, you don't know anyone, you start to go a little crazy. You're like if you go and meet someone after 2 weeks of not seeing anyone, you're like, I don't even know if I like how to say hi to this person. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
It, it is. It's like legitimately, it's a skill you're so used to having because of school, like whatever it is. Like, you're just like forced into these daily interactions, and if you live alone and you're in a new city, besides like what you get at work, all of a sudden, if you're trying to meet someone in this like platonic social situation only, like the only thing you're trying to do is just like talk to somebody, you lose those skills. I'm like, what do I even like? I've had those thoughts cross through my head meeting someone. You're like, what do I even say right now? Like, I'm like lost in this conversation, and so yeah, I think those meetups are good for keeping you on your toes when it comes to your social skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ways I would explore meeting new people. I did get two really good friends out of, so this was after I was freelancing full time. I got a contract role with a company and they wanted me in their office part time. Um, and me and this guy hit it off, and he's one of my good friends here in Denver now. So, and then he introduced me to his friends. We all went to we went to a Madeon show here in Denver. So we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. So, but that's a pretty like, I don't know, it's probably not really a reliable path for finding new people.
That's the golden ticket, is getting introduced to someone who's like local to that area, and like becoming friends with them, and then you get adopted into that friend group. That is ideal.
That is, you're right. That is the golden ticket. That's exactly what you're looking for. Because then you just get plugged into their friend group, their spots, what they're doing. That's ideal. Yeah. There's not a good way to manufacture that though.
No, you just gotta. find the extrovert that leads that group of locals. You got to find those extroverts, those people who are like genuinely like, oh, definitely. That's like the biggest takeaway I learned in the first year is like, if someone who's like really outgoing invites you to like, let's do, hey, I'm holding this thing, this party, you should stop by. Like, I've had a couple of those where like, I would say like 60% of the time I'd get in my head and be like, oh, I'm gonna have to show up. I'm gonna show up to this party alone. I'm gonna like be by myself, and I'm the only person I'm gonna know is the person hosting this party. And then I'm gonna be like a puppy dog with my tail between my legs, sitting in the corner of this room with all of these people who all know each other. And I would say that it is 9 times out of 10 a good time just to show up, say what's up to the person who's hosting that party, like come up with your ripcord, whatever it is. Like, so if you find yourself off, you can leave. But like, if you show up and just show up for those 30 or 45 minutes, you're building a relationship with that person who invited you. And that person's probably a good person to keep around them. Like, 'cause they're hosting things, they're being social, they're inviting you over. And like, just showing up goes a long way in building a relationship.
Yeah, and a big part of that is just getting FaceTime with like their friends, even if it is not like a formal introduction. If you just show up, like you said, for 30 minutes, you got to run, you have something else to do, you go in, you say what's up. They might introduce you to someone, they might not, depends kind of, what type of host they are. But then if they invite you to another thing, you see a similar face, then you have an immediate like, oh, hey, I think I saw you at blah, 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 blah. And then you get to meet them, then you get their name, then you get plugged in. I feel like it's the second meeting that like is really the game changer.
Yeah, because you have an intro, right? Like a hey, I feel like I've seen you around, like you were saying. Like you have something to get that social lubricant going. You're like, hey,
Right.
I think that's the hardest part. Is like it's hard to walk up to these people completely random, like, oh hey, I'm Yash, like what's up? You obviously you should do that. Like I don't think anyone cares, but at the moment it can be pretty tough.
Yeah, in the moment, it's so intimidating. But you're so right. Like if someone did that to me when like all of us are hanging out back in Phoenix, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, like what's up?" Get a vibe check, ask them some questions. I wouldn't just blow them off. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, "Hey, like screw you. Get away from
who,
me."
who do
Which
you
is
know
like
here?
what goes through your head.
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, this person's going to tell me to just fuck off." But that almost never happens. So,
You have yet to be told to be fuck off. A couple
yeah.
times, but I deserved it. So that's
Not on the first meeting though. There's no way.
no, no.
Yeah.
People are so nice. Like genuinely, people are just very, very nice. I think it's just a lot of internal mind games that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, if you guys made it this far, we sincerely appreciate you and your time. You know the drill. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we will catch you next week. Peace.
Peace. All right. I'm gonna stop recording. I'm gonna hit re-record, and we're gonna do episode 8, 30 more minutes. We're gonna talk about convenience loyalty. Okay.
Oh, fuck. I feel like there's some other things I want to talk to you about.
All right.
I've
While
been, I've
you
been
think about that, I'm gonna hit.
or
I'm
did
gonna
you hit
stop recording.
record?
No, no, no. I'm
No,
gonna
just
stop
hit,
it right
I
now.
feel like just hit record and then I feel like you could just clip it. Yeah. Because I feel like there's